Hello and welcome to the Empowered Couples Podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is about how to gently remind your partner of your wants and needs without nagging or attacking.
And where this came from, it was great because I love the conversation that gets sparked online. And we had put up an Instagram post where we shared a reminder about how you can't only express a want or need once and then resent your partner for not understanding. And the post had said, you can and should provide gentle, loving reminders. And so someone commented asking, and we love the conversation, saying, but I don't want to nag. Isn't it important that they just remember it? And
yeah, it's a great question.
And I was like, okay, I think this is a fear people have, is this idea of nagging. And we're going to completely demolish this idea of nagging.
I didn't know we were demolishing things here today.
I just really don't like that word. And I really don't like how it's associated a lot of times with women when they are almost feeling like they're stuck between, I'm either expressing myself, my only option is to be a nag, or I don't say anything at all. Mm-hmm. And those aren't the only two options that we're going to go into.
Well, I guess let's talk about first memory, because that can be one of the things that gets us in this trap. Is, I know for some men, and I say that because we coach a lot of people, they just say, oh, well, I forgot, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, so it can become kind of a complex thing, primarily because I think we also have to take a step back and realize our partners are not 100% thinking about us.
Wait, you mean you're not 100% of the time thinking about my wants and needs?
It's often because we spend 24/7 together. But there's just something to acknowledge within ourselves that, first of all, our partners are not 100% thinking of us all the time. They are their own person, and they're thinking about other things. They're doing other things. And so to have this expectation in a sense that they are maybe always remembering your needs or wants, or even more so, I think, anticipating, that can be something that trips up some partners. Is they should just know. They should be anticipating. Maybe you said it one time in sort of passing potentially, and then it feels like I have to nag if I have to bring this up again. Mm-hmm. And I think just from what I've gathered and for myself, there are times where something is really important to you, so you bring it up, but I don't know the level of importance necessarily. Mm-hmm. There have been times that you've shared something, and I thought you were just pretty much just sharing. Like, that would be nice. And I would also assert that sometimes, because maybe you feel like it could trigger something, like, oh, I don't really want to share my want or need per se, that it's said in such a passive way that the partner doesn't know how important this really is. Mm-hmm. And that's just from one of the things I've seen. Yeah,
I think that can absolutely be applicable in some circumstances. And, I think why this is important is because even in our partnership, and you and I have probably on the spectrum, very open and frequent communication, there are times where I share a want or need, or vice versa. You tell me something you want or need, and one of us maybe loses sight of it after a certain amount of time. Now, is that because we don't care? I don't think so. I mean, you and I are very conscientious of each other. Memory. So I wanted to look more into this, and I know you have something to say about memory too, but I looked up, there's something called the forgetting curve.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, someone actually, there's probably tons of people researching memory, but this forgetting curve basically shows and proves that within 1 hour, people will have forgotten 50% of the information presented. And this could be in a presentation, but also if someone just said a lot in a meeting or a conversation with your partner. So again, 1 hour, 50% gone. Then within 24 hours, the average is 70% of that information is gone. 24 hours. Now think about a week. A week later, 90% of that information is forgotten. Mm-hmm. And this is, again, applicable to just about anything that people would be presented or someone would share with them. Now, What does that mean? Well, it means that as human beings, we cannot just rely on our memory. And therefore, in your relationship, in your marriage, it doesn't always mean that your partner doesn't care if they don't remember. Now, we'll talk about some things to put in place so that it's not always you having to remind them. Of course, you both want to have systems to remember what's important to each other. But also, sometimes our partner just needs a gentle reminder. They have a lot on their plate. There's a lot on their mind, especially if you guys have a lot going on in your life, in your world. You know, we want to give people the benefit of the doubt, especially our partner. They're not maliciously trying to forget your wants and needs. Perhaps, you know, they could just maybe use a little gentle reminder, which we'll describe how to do in a few minutes.
This is interesting. The forgetful curve, is that what you called
Forgetting
it?
curve.
The forgetting curve is actually really aligned with what I've heard from professional speakers. Because when you do a presentation or you do a talk, you want people to take away like your main points. And they've done studies where they've walked away and asked people that were in the audience, like just then, what was that about? And they can't even tell you, right?
I don't know. I liked it.
And then there's the pastor from Texas, Joel Osteen, actually is from a very structural perspective, one of the very best speakers out there. And repetition is what strengthens memory. And so he'll have like hour and a half sermon, and whatever the topic is, let's call it like faith, he'll say or repeat faith or slightly different, like trust or have faith in
Belief.
or build your faith. Literally, there was a speech where he repeated it 100 times.
Whoa. Just to have people remember that one point.
Yeah. So the main point was, and they've studied, if something is said like 10 times in a speech, the retention is like 70%. So anyway, with this whole thing of memory, repetition and emotion are the two things that strengthen memory, if you will. But the other thing, it's funny that you were thinking of memory this week too. You know, we have a web class coming up. So it's a surprise, actually. And there's a piece in there because it's about repairing from conflicts, doing it faster, having it go from days down to hours, down to minutes. And a part of that I really reflected on has to do with memory. And so it's been studied at the University of California. We think, it's funny to say we think memory. We think our memory is like going under our computer and clicking on a video file.
Like it's easy.
Well, not just easy, but you click on a video file and then the video plays back exactly that way, which is the case with a video file. Our memory is not like that. Our memory actually has to be reconstructed every time we recall it.
Interesting.
So it's much more like a jigsaw puzzle.
That's complex.
And you have to put all the pieces together every time. So when you're doing that, sometimes you lose a little piece of the puzzle.
You mean it's not always accurate, your memory?
Sometimes with your jigsaw puzzles, especially if you have kids, you got pieces from other puzzles. And that actually has to do with how you're recalling things. You might feel emotion about something. Some people even mistake day and night, the people that were there, because when emotion is there, it actually even has our perception be different. So with the perception, with the emotion, and with this reconstruction, to be honest, and again, this is being studied at University of California, our memory can't be counted on to be all that accurate.
And so what that means is you don't want to just resent your partner if you share a want or need one time and then think your only two options are to just be silent and just wait and you're watching the clock. I wonder how many weeks or months it's going to take for them to remember. Maybe if I get pissed off enough, they'll notice. That's option one that a lot of people see. The other option is I'm going to have to nag them. I'm going to have to say it repeatedly in kind of like a passive aggressive way. Those aren't the other two options, which we're going to go into with assertiveness here in just a few minutes.
Yeah, and it has such a big role to play in repairing. So you want to talk about the web class coming up too?
Yes. Well, actually, at this point when they're listening, because we are recording these episodes for you when baby Freeman is here in our arms.
Ooh.
And so we wanted you to have resources to listen to. And so we actually recorded a web class for you all about the 5 steps to repair repair after an argument so you reconnect in minutes. And we're going to give you a communication principle to help prevent unnecessary conflicts from even happening. And so, I mean, you guys are going to love this web class. We wanted to make sure you had a resource to be watching while we were off with our newborn. So go to onlinecouplesworkshops.com/repair. That /repair is important so you get this specific web class.
Yeah. So let's go further into this. We can't wait to see you all on that web class. But let's talk about then the reminding an assertive way versus nagging.
Yeah. So if reminders are important, as we already talked about with memory, what's the distinction between nagging and what we would say
asserting your needs and wants?
Assertiveness. Assertiveness is something we talk a lot about in our book, The Argument Hangover, as well, and is a skill we all can get better at. What does healthy assertiveness look like? We're going to go into that. But first, I just have to say, I despise the term nagging. Again, I think it paints people, and especially it's attributed to women. It's like this such a disempowering word to use. And it really leaves people feeling stuck in a place, again, of either I'm going to have to nag them or I have to say nothing at all. And so I encourage you to delete that term from your sentence. That should never be thrown around in a relationship. I think saying you're nagging me or something like that, just it's so diminishing. And I really encourage all couples to delete it from their belief system and their definitions. Don't ever label each other that way. I think it's really unkind. And there's a much nicer way to say, hey, is there another way you could bring this up to me?
What I just took away from what you said, though, was deleting from your own vocabulary to not label your partner. But I also heard to remove that within, I guess, your internal vocabulary. Like, don't even think of yourself as nagging.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, just delete that as an action that you could ever take.
Right. So nagging is defined as annoying or irritating a person with persistent fault finding or continuous urging.
Oh, that's interesting. What's in there, though?
The urging,
the fault finding.
Yeah. So, okay, that's not healthy assertiveness. So again, basically delete nagging. We don't like it. Instead, what we invite you to do is aim to be assertive. Assertiveness is one of our favorite things. That's why we talk about it in our communication personality types. Assertiveness, we define in our book, The Argument Hangover. Do you want to share the definition?
Yeah, well, it's on a scale of being assertive to reserved, and it's the degree to which you are open, comfortable, and, keyword here, underline this, proactive in expressing yourself and what you need and want in the relationship.
So what does it mean to express yourself? And I'm actually going to read an excerpt from our book.
Oh.
Right? So you're getting like a little, this is like an
what
audio
page is this
book.
on?
Audio book of The Argument Hangover. Well, first off, expressing yourself is not just talking.
That's a key.
Some people would call themselves assertive because they talk a lot, but that's not what we mean by asserting yourself and expressing yourself in the relationship. Expressing yourself must include, number one, clarity/detail. So are you clear to your partner? Plus your authentic thought, feeling, idea, need, desire, emotion, and requests. So assertiveness and expressing yourself has to have that clarity and what it is that you're really asking for if you're making a request. The more assertive you are, the more you are open to sharing all of your feelings, needs, and ideas, not just filtering them to be only the positive ones. Now, the end of the chapter, by the way, or that section, by the way, coming back out of that excerpt.
Close quote.
Exactly. Assertiveness does not mean badgering, though, too. It's not you're like, I'm going to work on my assertiveness freemans. Yeah. I'm going to bring this up every day then. I'll assert myself. Part of assertiveness is discerning the timing, the tempo, how frequent to bring it up.
Well, way before that, I even hear the clarity and the detail. Mm-hmm. Because if you're really vague in what your need or want is, if you're saying it even in more of a passive way, or again, it's just overly vague, hey, I'd like to have us be more intimate. Okay, your partner's like, oh, okay. But where's the clarity? Where's the detail? Like, what does that actually mean? What are you looking for? Mm-hmm. And I think to your point, Also having the emotion in it, meaning how important is that to you? That's one of the things that really gets my attention. Like, oh, I should really pay attention to this. When you say that, hey, how that would have me feel is respected, is valued, is prioritized. That's the signal to me, oh, this is not just something that you're sharing just for the sake of conversation. This is something to really pay attention to. You're also not putting it on me and saying what you're not liking about what I'm doing. You're saying, hey, this is how this would have me feel. And you're sharing with the clarity and detail on what that means.
I love that you're bringing that up, especially or underlining that part, because especially the not being kind of passive or vague. Sometimes people be like, oh, I'm assertive, Freemans. And then we'll be like, okay, let me observe you, in your real life. And it really comes off more as I'm going to share what I'm annoyed by telling you what I don't like right now. And I hope you translate this into what I want or need.
Yeah.
That's not assertiveness, right? Assertiveness is said in a kind way. It's not aggressive. And that's really important. Assertiveness is not aggressiveness. It's just, hey, to the point. Here's the detail of what I want, need, desire, or my request is, and it can be said in a loving way, and it's said in a proactive way. It's before you get to the point of frustration, annoyance, and sparking a disagreement. But again, you watch the WebClass for what to do when there is a disagreement. You brought up a good point, Erin. Assertiveness would also not leave things just hanging. You talked about an agreement.
Yeah. Oh, that's another good point. Having an agreement. But I was also thinking about sometimes you might need like a timeline, like a by when.
Okay.
And I think that's often missing. Well, it depends on what you were talking about. If it was a need or want that had a specific action, maybe to go to the store
or dinner together, like quality time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a good one. Maybe something for the kids. Like you felt you needed support with something, managing the kids or getting them to school. You would want to say like, well, by when or what day?
Yeah. When can we start this?
Yeah. What day do you need me to support you specifically? If you just said, I need more support with getting the kids to school or getting ready in the morning, well, at least for me, it's like, well, when? Tomorrow? Next week? Just in general?
Or they could just say, okay, yeah, I'll get better at that, but there's not a promise or agreement.
Yeah, so that's to the next point. An agreement can be a by when, but maybe give some more examples of now, though you have asserted yourself now, we still need an agreement, right?
Yeah, because like here's a quick example of what the conversation could sound like. You realize you're wanting or needing some more quality time together. Like you've been feeling deprioritized, disconnected. So you go to your partner and you now know how to assert yourself as opposed to quote unquote nag. And you would go, hey, partner, I feel like I've been missing you and I would love to connect more. And I think what would have me feel that is if we started to go, on a date once a week. We either went to brunch or we went on a walk. We tried something new once a week. And that would really mean a lot to me. And the other partner could go, okay, yeah, we can make more time for that. Then nothing gets implemented. And now you're frustrated and you're watching the clock. And a few weeks later, you blow up at them
because this is when you feel like I have to bring it up again. And now I'm nagging. Exactly.
But assertiveness would, at the end of the conversation, go, okay, awesome. Do you think we could get something planned or on the books like this week? Or when should we start this? Asking them a question. So it's getting something put in place. There are too many people living in concepts. We'll get better at that. Yeah, I'll try. Yes, that's something we'll do. No, you got to put it in place. So do you want to summarize just what makes assertiveness different than nagging?
Well, going back to the excerpt that you read from our book, it's often that it's too vague. Sometimes, well, if it is nagging, it's going to be pointing out the faults, expressing what it is that you're not liking or you're disliking, or make it the fault of your partner, where assertiveness is proactive also. Nagging can seem like it comes up as a response or reaction in the moment, where assertiveness is going to be, as I notice a desire, as I notice a need I have, I'm proactive in starting to express it. And when I express it, the assertiveness also adds the detail, the clarity, possibly the by when, possibly emotion, meaning how important it is to you, and then really concludes with what is our agreement so that this actually happens.
I love that so much. And again, this is all about how your partner may need a reminder, a loving, gentle reminder once in a while about your wants and needs, especially if you guys have a lot going on in life. We can't just count on saying something once, and that doesn't mean they don't necessarily care. Now, I know some of you are thinking, okay, Freemans, I'm going to do my part on this assertiveness thing. And I still feel like both myself and or my partner could get better at being reliable and following through. So I actually want to refer you to either listen for the first time or re-listen to episode 177, where we talk about reliability and follow through and some of the simple structure pieces you can put in to make sure that you are trying to remember more of what's important to your partner. And they don't always have to be the one, hey, just another your weekly reminder. So it is both of you playing a part in this to remember and to keep in mind your wants and your needs.
Yeah, we talk a lot in there about not being just appeasing them. You don't just say yes or nod your head around agreements unless you're actually committing to that. So you actually have to give your full commitment yes to that commitment. It's not just your partner's agreement. When you say yes, it's now yours. So you're just as responsible for that. And of course, we talked about being your word, which is really all that you actually are.
You're giving them a sneak peek into the episode. That's why they got to listen to episode 177.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's so much more on being your word, but a little preview.
It goes in deep. And so we really hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember, you're a team in supporting each other in your wants, your needs, gentle reminders. And make sure you enjoy the web class while we're off. And even though we're going to be snuggling our newborn as you listen to this, send us a message on Instagram if you enjoy the web class. Remember, that is at onlinecouplesworkshops.com/repair. And that'll be linked in the show notes too, if you just want to be able to click on it easily. You're going to love it. We had it filmed in studio. It's like super professional and high tech and special. And we just love you all. And we will talk to you on the next episode.